what are some of the little things that I might be doing right now where my desires, though I thought they were good, have become disordered, and it's actually causing harm to my marriage or my family. And maybe I need to consider this and think about it, and we need to talk to each other and decide on different habits to put in place. Do you find yourself wondering if this is all marriage has to offer? Are you so busy and exhausted at the end of the day that your marriage is the last thing you have energy to think about?
If you're wondering if God has more for your marriage, you've come to the right place. Welcome to the Living Marriages Podcast. My name is Aaron, pastor and marriage coach.
And I'm April, spiritual director and marriage coach. Join us as we explore simple habits for building intimacy with your spouse while learning what it means to center your marriage on Christ.
Thanks for joining us on the Living Marriages Podcast. If you haven't had a chance yet, we encourage you to please hit the like button or subscribe button. It would mean the world to us. And as well, tell your friends and family about this podcast and this ministry. Well, April, before coming on to record today, you and I had really in-depth conversation, and you told me you were quite nervous about recording today.
Yep.
You want to tell our listeners why?
It kind of feels like God is calling us into talking about some stuff that's not always easy to talk about or easy for us to hear or reflect on. It's stuff that we just kind of want to let slide and just leave on the back burner. And so it feels a little scary to feel like God is asking us to talk about some of those things.
Some of the hard things. And the topic that we felt very led to talk about today, it's multi-layered, and we pray that the main point will be the main point today, and we'll, it'll be clear to you, our listeners. But we were really feeling convicted in our own marriage, I think, and as we've had the privilege of journeying beside other people in their marriages somewhat as well. What fruit is being born in your marriage? We hear it in Scripture all the time. Jesus, in his Sermon on the Mount, says in Matthew chapter 7, starting in verse 15, "Beware of false prophets who come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly are ravenous wolves. You will recognize them by their fruits. Are grapes gathered from thorn bushes, or figs from thistles? So every healthy tree bears good fruit, but the diseased tree bears bad fruit. A healthy tree cannot bear bad fruit, nor can a diseased tree bear good fruit. Every tree that does not bear good fruit is cut down and thrown into the fire. Thus you will recognize them by their fruits." Now, obviously, Jesus is talking about these false teachers and what fruit that their teachings are bearing. But I think it can be said for our marriages as well. What fruit is being born in our marriages? And sometimes it can be the smallest of things that can lead to, we'll just say, rot in our marriages that leads to bad fruit.
It's so easy to think that the little tiny habits that maybe we've formed that are actually damaging are not that big a deal. It's not that big a deal that I spend half an hour scrolling on Facebook on the computer every evening. But if you stop to think about that, if I'm saying yes to that, what could I possibly be saying no to in saying that yes? And if I decided to say no to that habit that seems not that big a deal, what could God be inviting me into and us into with that half an hour of time to say yes to that might actually have a much bigger impact on our marriage than we could even realize?
We've experienced this. I've experienced this to a small degree, but I think God's catching me in my tracks right now as we're talking about this. A small little habit, I think, that I've let creep into our marriage, into our family even, that might seem harmless or innocuous, but I'm already starting to see some harmful fruit come from. And that is from a hockey pool I just joined. Now, I'm not saying at all, people out there who are into hockey pools, that hockey pools are evil. They're not. But what has become clear to me, even just today, is some of the fruit from this that I am not really, or that, well, God's pointing out to me and that I'm not happy about, and that he's not happy about. Just a little backstory. I think I mentioned to April a few weeks ago that I was going to do this hockey pool with some friends and colleagues.
Well, you asked me if that was something that I would be okay with you doing.
Yeah.
We talked about it.
And it was $20, not a huge financial investment. And I thought, oh, this will be a good way to connect me with some colleagues from the orchestra. And it's been fun. I love hockey. And so being able to follow along and keep track of scores is really fun. But it's also, I don't think either of us recognized how involved it would be, because without going into a lot of detail, you've got to make sure certain players are dressed and other players are sitting on your bench and someone gets injured and you got to make a trade and you got to move and blah, blah, blah. And before you know it, what I thought might be a little fun thing now turns into an obsession. Now, I was framing this in my mind as I was realizing I was becoming more obsessed with it as, oh, it's still harmless. It's only a few minutes a day, without actually counting the cost of that time. It's not just a few minutes here and there. It's a few minutes consistently throughout the day. So maybe it's 2 or 3 minutes, but if I'm checking my phone 20 times a day, that adds up. To looking at hockey pool stuff. And it's also something where I've realized, it's led to the fruit of distraction, I think, in our marriage, in our family. Again, you might say it's just a small thing, but it adds up. And it's also led to a fruit that I've seen, especially in our older son, who now can follow along and is interested in things like this. And I noticed it this morning where, again, I think there's been good fruit in that, hey, Daddy's got this team. We're having fun tracking this together. You can help me make some decisions about which players we should do. That part's been really neat to connect over. The part that I have not liked and that I feel like God has pointed out to me just this morning was, if I start my day with my phone to check who's injured and what moves I should make in my hockey pool, guess what? Ethan, our 8-year-old, is also starting his day checking the phone. And when I saw him do that today, and I said, no, let's not do this anymore, he was not happy. And there was the fruit of resentment there. There was a fruit of distraction. We couldn't start our day in a good way because both of us were somehow hooked by this hockey pool. And it's what started off as a small, harmless seeming habit has turned into something that is bearing fruit that now I am becoming very aware of could, if we don't check it now, could grow into a very poisonous fruit for our family and for our marriage.
And as you're saying that, I'm just... these things can start off very innocent. It can feel like something that's good, and it might be good. The thing that you're doing, you might be working on making your house more beautiful. You might be, maybe you need to work a little bit more to have the money to go on a vacation. And these things are not necessarily bad things in and of themselves. It's when our focus and our desire gets disordered and we start focusing on something that is not, like you said, it's not producing the good fruit that we set out to produce, and it actually starts producing rotten fruit. And so I think what we need to be able to do is look at these little things and say, what are some of the little things that I might be doing right now where my desires, though I thought they were good, have become disordered, and it's actually causing harm to my marriage or my family. And maybe I need to consider this and think about it. And we need to talk to each other and decide on different habits to put in place.
Yeah. No, again, we're not saying that, again, the hockey pool in and of itself is not a bad thing. Working extra is not necessarily a bad thing. Going on a family vacation is not a bad thing. But when these things come out of order, when that thing becomes the only thing, or again, this is why I think having, taking time to assess where we're at with the fruit of our marriage, and the fruit that's being produced in our families is a really important and healthy thing. That's why we always encourage you as well, our listeners, to make sure you have community outside of your own marriage, to be speaking into your marriage, to say, hey, you guys are doing great over here. Have you considered what is happening with your choices over here? What we're seeing some fruit that we think you guys might not be happy about if you pause to speak or to think about that. And April, you and I have also even been convicted that we're all about following Jesus here at Living Marriages Podcast. We're all about pursuing, running after Jesus. But even our pursuit of Jesus can become disordered. And it can lead to some harmful fruit. And we just read about, I was quite surprised actually, because I haven't gone into a lot of the work of A.W. Tozer. Aidan Tozer was his name, but a prolific preacher and writer. And I came across his story in this excellent book, which we will talk more about on the podcast, by Sheila Ray Gregoire and her husband, Keith. It's called The Marriage You Want. And they talked about a little bit of the fruit that was coming from A.W. Tozer's pursuit of God. And so Sheila or Greg write this, preacher and writer A.W. Tozer was so dedicated to God that he lived a life of simplicity, taking public transit, never buying new clothes, and spending hours face down in prayer every day. This wasn't a difficult life for him to live, but it significantly burdened his wife, Ada, as she tried to wrangle 7 children on the subway to go grocery shopping or walk them in the snow to church. He always put ministry before family and left his family broken in his wake. He died fairly young and his widow remarried. When asked about her 2 husbands, Ada replied, Aidan loved Jesus. Leonard loves me. Ouch. And I think that was, for me, such a powerful realization that we need to be passionate about pursuing Jesus. He's calling us to wholeheartedly pursue him, but our pursuit of him will lead to good fruit. Our pursuit of Jesus, relying on his Spirit, being obedient to him and his word, will lead to a thriving marriage, we believe. Will lead to a thriving family. It won't lead to one person pursuing their spiritual, championship. I don't know how to, that I'm going to be this spiritual champion, the height of spirituality, and this well-regarded preacher and author, while my wife suffers at home because I can't be present with her or my kids. That's a disordered desire that starts from something really good. And so that's why I think we feel that this topic of fruit is so important today and so challenging.
And I think one thing that when we choose to get married, yes, we are still 2 individuals, but when we make that commitment to one another, we are choosing to enter into that covenant relationship where 2 become one. And that doesn't mean that we become the same person. No. We are still 2 individuals. However, the choices that we make cannot be made on an individual basis because our choices will affect our spouse. And so I can't just go off and pursue whatever thing I want to do. And especially now with kids as well, I can't spend thousands of dollars on, I don't know what I want to spend thousands of dollars on, but I can't just go do that at the expense of you, Aaron, and our kids, because we are in this together. Yeah. And it doesn't mean that I'm not going to do things that I enjoy. And I know that you would never try to prevent me from doing things that I enjoy. But in our love for one another and being in this together, we are going to make choices that hopefully are directed towards God, and also choices that consider each other and what the outcome is going to be of that choice, and how it affects you and how it affects the kids.
So our choices then in marriage really do need to lead to mutual flourishing. We can't just say, I'm going to be this at the expense of everything else, because this is what God's called me to be. My calling might be to be a podcaster, but it's also as a dad. It's also as a husband. And so what is the fruit coming from me pursuing God in this, and how am I doing that? And so I think to you, our listeners today, we don't have a ton of great answers. we might have some ideas and suggestions, but our hope and prayer in this, and we hope you'll join us for episode, what will be 78, a Thursday Thought, where we will spend time in prayer and reflection on asking God to show us what is the fruit of our marriage. And are there any disordered desires that we do have leading to some bad fruit? And then, God, what are some of the simple habits that you're asking us to incorporate and change? Because I think we're here today to say that, yeah, some of this might take heart surgery. Some of this might take a huge overhaul. But we also believe that there may be just small things that God is inviting you to consider, even right now. For me, that is reassessing how much time I spend on the hockey pool and how I do that with Ethan during the day.
And I'm going to put this out there too and say that there are seasons in life that are difficult. When you have really young kids, sometimes it feels like there's barely enough time to just have a 5-minute conversation with your spouse. Yeah. We get that.
Yeah,
we do. We do. And so this is not, it like Aaron said, it could mean this big heart overhaul. But in reality, we're checking out at the end of the day and scrolling on our phones because we're tired.
Yeah.
And so this doesn't have to be a huge undertaking. It's the small things that we make habits in our daily life, the positive habits, instead of just drifting into the things that feel restful, actually stopping and saying, is it actually restful to scroll on my phone at the end of the day? Or would it feel better to actually intentionally sit down with you, Aaron, and say, hey, how is your day? How's your heart doing today? And even from a past episode way back, what's arose from today that you've experienced? What's something that was really great? What was a thorn today? And even just as I'm saying that, even thinking about talking to you in that way already makes me feel more connected to you. And that could take 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Yeah. And so I just want to encourage you, our listeners out there, not to feel overwhelmed by this.
No.
To stop and think and pray and talk to each other and say, what is something that is doable, reasonable for us at this stage in life that will draw us closer together and closer to God, instead of just letting things happen. And as we know, when things just happen, relationships can drift and we can drift further apart and not even realize it. So please take the step to draw closer together. Recognize that marriages take work. And that in that work and in that intentionality, there is so much joy and purpose to be found in that relationship.
So we would encourage you to check back in a couple of days with episode 78 when it comes out, because we will have more time to reflect on this. But in the meantime, we will be praying for you and praying for ourselves too, even just to take that first step to maybe put the phone down and to instead turn to your spouse and spend that 5-10 minutes in a connecting conversation. And that's hard. We hear it, the initial inertia of just wanting to scroll at the end of the day. Even the thought of putting that down and turning towards your spouse might feel almost impossible with the amount of energy it takes. But God is here for it. God's here for you. And we're here for you too. We are praying for you. And so if you want to reach out and ask for prayer, we're here. info@livingmarriages.com. We want to cheer you on. And so we are praying for you. Until next time, God bless.
Thank you for the privilege of journeying with you today as we seek God's best for our marriages.
Before you go, if you've been blessed, challenged, or inspired by what you've heard today, please bless us by hitting the follow button, leaving us a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and sharing this podcast with family and friends.
You can also support this nonprofit podcast by making a charitable donation at our website, livingmarriages.com.
Until next time, praying the life, intimacy, and connection of God's love over you and your marriage.